If you want to find her products and her books, which are some amazing stuff, EvertHopman.com. And you'll see that down below. We'll keep out there. Welcome to Pagan World TV and this great Yule interviews. We want to talk to people about Yule. And first of all, why don't you give us what does Yule mean to you? And
Yule, what does Yule mean to me?
yes,
Well, it's basically the winter solstice. That's what it means to me. You know, we're as pagans, we celebrate the wheel of the year, and we're moving into the darkest time now, the darkest moon of the darkest time of year, and we honor it. And that's what's so beautiful. We honor all the festivals of the earth year. Um, and that's really what it means to me, because all the gatherings that I go to, whether they're druids or witches or just friends, you know, it's all about meeting in the dark and lighting candles and having lights around the house and on trees. And you know, it's all about reminding ourselves that the light is coming back. um that's what it means to me.
fantastic. And that's it, yeah, because I know that a lot for different, but you are an author, herbalist, druid, and you're a prolific author. And one of the first ones I want to talk about is your new children's book. I think that's is it Once Around the Sun? I think I've got that.
Yes, speaking of Yule,
Yes.
yeah, this book, Once Around the Sun, it's designed for kids, for families to
Hmm.
read out loud, with a story for each of the Earth festivals and a recipe that you can cook together and a craft that goes with each story. But the feedback that I'm getting, from witches and other pagans, is that covens like this because it gives them activities to do, you know, around the year. It gives them a recipe to cook. And you know, so it's not just kids, although it was originally designed for kids. It ends up being for everybody. And the festival coming up, if anybody is my friend on Facebook, you've probably seen this, but um, this is La Befana, the Italian Christmas witch,
Hmm.
who actually comes around Epiphany, which is January 5th, but she really is a Strega Christmas witch. And then for the Samhain season, I had a story of the Cailleach. The illustrations are incredible. They're all oil paintings that were done by Lauren Mills, who lives here in Massachusetts. Everything is original, the artwork. This is for Imbolc. This is Bridget. It's a story about young Bridget. And it's a
I
story
think
about some young druids. And then Beltane or Beltana, another story about a young druid at Beltane. There's a Polish story, Kupalnoka, which is for the summer solstice,
hmm
and the wreath making, and with recipes for pierogies. Uh,
hmm some of
Lunasa,
my favorite foods.
yeah, Lunasa, that's Mananan MacLear.
Hmm.
And oh, I love this picture. This is for the fall equinox, and that's a mermaid. But it's the story is actually from Orkney. Um, and I
So
think I forgot one picture. Anyway, for the Yule, yeah, here we go. Norse Yule. So the illustrations are really amazing in this.
this is really for anyone who practices the Wheel of the Year, not just Druidism, but just anyone who practices the Wheel of the Year.
Right, especially if you have a family or a grove or a coven and
Hmm.
you want to celebrate as a group, because each festival has a story that you read out loud, and then there's a recipe that you can eat with it, you know, with the story, and a craft. So for example, one of the crafts is making a magic wand, so I have a whole section on all the different woods and the magical properties of the different woods, so that when you select, you know, it's different to have an apple wand versus an oak wand versus an elder wand versus
Hmm.
cherry wand, you know, they're all. And then in the summer solstice chapter where they're making wreaths, I have a big section on the magical properties of flowers, so that depending on what you put in your wreath, you can have different intentions. And every chapter goes like that. They all have something. For the Ostara chapter, there's a big section on natural vegetables and fruits and things you can use to dye your eggs. You don't have to use chemicals. You can use things that you have around the house, like onion peels.
So this is a good book to give this time of year, but it'll be a gift that you can give for the whole year. And this
Right.
isn't your first children's book. You have another one, don't you?
Yes. This one, Walking the
Hmm.
World in Wonder, a children's herbal, which has 75 different plants. That's goldenrod, and daylilies. It's divided into seasons: spring, summer, fall, winter, bee balm.
Hmm.
And then each plant introduces itself. And then there's a really simple project that kids can do with their parents. Like it says, I am bee balm. My spiky pink, red, or purple flowers appear from summer to early fall. I'm a relative of mint, so my stems are square. And it goes on. I make a nice tea to help soothe your stomach or bring down a fever, you know. And then I have to create a magical power spot in your garden, plant bee balm in a 3-foot wide circle, and grow a carpet of thyme in the center. Sit in the middle and meditate, smelling the flowers in time as you inhale. So there's also a life list so that kids can check off, like if they found plantain, they can check that off. If they found an oak tree, they can check that off. So there's this, all the plants are in a list and they can check off like a game, everything that they found.
Well,
So, but again, adults who are absolute beginner herbalists have told me that they like this book because, every plant, there's a beautiful photograph. Stephen
mhm.
Foster did the photographs. And you learn to identify the plants, and then you learn one very simple thing that you can do with the plant without killing yourself, like, so, so anyway, yeah, club moss, but it's called Walking the World in Wonder, a children's herbal. And you can get these from me, or I'm perfectly happy if people get them online. You can go to Amazon. You can go to innertraditions.com to find a lot of these, although I have different publishers. But
Yeah. And so one of the things is that if you're using Amazon, use one of the Amazon cares. Many of the pagan organizations, such as the Ukrainian Shepherd Church, a lot of the churches, if your temple is, should register. If you're not, register with Amazon cares, and that way you get a little bit of money back when you recommend these books. Mhm.
yeah,
So there's lots of ways to help out the city. So okay, so you're a great druid, and we have on Pagan World TV have run your contemporary, your class that you have on contemporary Druidism, and some of the other of your videos. What would be a good book of yours if you wanted to give it to somebody who was interested? I know you're a prolific writer, so uh,
interested in Druidism?
well, Druidism or magic from a little bit older point of view, some like a teenager or a young adult, or hmm?
Okay, well, let's see. I got a whole stack of books here. Um,
Yes.
this one is very popular. This is actually my second book that I ever wrote, but it's
Mm-hmm.
the most popular.
You
It's
can see
called
that.
a Druid's Herbal for the Sacred Earth Year.
I see
And
libraries all the time. I do, because I'm a big believer in libraries, and I see that.
well, you'll find it at Barnes and Noble, all over the
Mm-hmm.
place. But what this book does is it introduces Druidism.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a Celtic Reconstructionist Druid, so we like our history. So it's all about the historical Druids
Mm-hmm.
in the first part of the book. Um, and then it goes into the festivals of the year from a Druidic perspective, how to celebrate. And again, covens find this useful, groves find it useful. And then it has specific rituals like for funerals, child blessings, house blessings, um, very
Rites of
specific.
passages.
Yeah, life passages, exactly. With suggestions for herbs, because it's an herbal, suggestions for herbs to use as incense, as drinks, in the ritual, to wear, things like that. But also little practices that you can do for each of the festivals. So that's a good introduction to Druidism.
Mhm.
And if they're interested in witches,
And we
there's
are.
this book. There must be somebody watching who's interested in witches.
Actually, I have that book as well. So I find it really fascinating. Because it's a very modern look at witchcraft versus some of the older material. Hmm?
Well, it starts with a timeline of the witch persecutions,
Hmm.
which I actually found out began in the Bronze Age. I mean, it starts with the Old Testament,
Right.
which is pretty hard on witches. Although originally it didn't talk about witches. The word witch was added by King James, who was terrified of witches, and I talk about that too.
Hmm.
But the original Old Testament talked about whisperers,
And
old women who whisper, things
the
like
famous
that.
saying, do not let a witch to live. If you really look at the old time, was poisoner. Do not let a poisoner.
Exactly, poisoners, whisperers.
So
And then
different.
so it starts with the timeline and it goes all the way up to Salem.
Hmm.
And this is all history. I guess I'm a historian, I don't know, but it's
You are.
not made up anything, it's history.
Mhm.
And then I talked to descendants of the Salem accused witches because they weren't witches. The only one who looks like she was a witch was Tituba, and she's the only one they didn't kill.
Yeah.
All the ones they killed were nice Christians.
Hmm.
Um, so I talked to their descendants. And then the third part of the book is interviews with modern witches,
Hmm.
in detailed interviews with modern witches.
And I
And
think that's an important part. So
yeah,
one last
because
time, how many books have you written altogether? Have you counted them?
I always get confused when I get asked that. I think there are 15 in
Okay.
print at the moment. I'm working on another one, and I have another one that's already sitting at the publisher waiting in line. Um, oh no, I have two sitting at the publisher waiting in line, and I'm writing another one. So I don't know how to answer that, but it's roughly 15,
So,
16,
so
17.
if you're looking for Lady Hopman's collection, so 15 books are what you're looking for right now out there. So give me one more last book. So what's your most, what somebody would call your most advanced book? If you're really looking at, because everybody is always saying they're looking for advanced material. You hear that?
Advanced what? Herbalism,
I
Druidism?
mean, anything that you would say that
Oh my
more
God.
practitioner
Okay.
would desire.
Um, well,
For the person that says, "Oh, I've read everything," well, what's
yeah, I've read everything. Okay, well, okay, so this one has actually won 2 awards. It
okay?
was the International Book of the Year it was the International Herb Association Book of the Year for 2016. And the Council for Visionary Resources also gave it a Book of the Year award for herbalism. The reason this is advanced, because nobody else has ever done this, in the back, there's over 40 pages of builders, cleansers, and tonics. There's a big section on formula making.
All right.
Um, and I talk about how to do the triangle system of formula making. And then I have all the builders, cleansers, and tonics. But before that, I talk about individual herbs that you can find in the wild and in your garden, and things that you can make with them. And it's also a memoir because I talk about my own journey into herbalism in this book. So that's kind of woven in. And people seem to like that combination, science and memoir. They really like that.
Well, it gives them context. I think that's a very important thing, is that people don't understand a lot of what we learn. Because everybody says, "Oh, do you study to memorize?" Go, no, we study until we understand, and that's a different concept of that sort of thing. So yeah, that's great. So how are you going to celebrate Yule? Last question is how are you
Um,
celebrate to
well, I actually, okay, so there's a group of witches that I circle with every year. We're going to be on top of a mountain. Um, Typically well, we used to get over 100 people, but with COVID and everything, it's probably going to be less.
Mhm.
So, we do singing, we sing for the whole thing from beginning to end. And at some point we turn out all the lights, and then we light one candle, and then everybody lights each other's candles, and the light comes back, and then we have a feast.
It
Gotta
sounds,
have a feast.
you know, I have said pagans love to eat. People, said, we had great, you got a number of great books. I think a lot with herbalism. I think with the sustainability movement, you got great books. There's a lot of people who are moving into discussing more sustainable gardens, more ways to handle sort of more herbal medicines, things you can do yourself. So I think that is great. But Once Around the Sun, I think is a great book you need to get for the kids. So that's what it is. EvertHopman.com. You can go to Inner Traditions as well, or Amazon. And if you use Amazon, please, please, please use Amazon Cares for your group. That sort of thing. And there we go. Any last thoughts for us this season?
Well, just very quickly, sorry, I just have to mention this.
Oh,
These
sure.
books were briefly out of print. My novels, I have 3 novels, and within the novels is the Druid path. So
Oh,
there's the tools, the rituals, the beliefs, they're all woven in. They were briefly out of print, but I
cool.
brought them back into print now. So this is the first one, Priestess of the Forest. The second one is the Druid Isle.
Okay.
And then the third one is Priestess of the Fire Temple,
I
which
think
is
I think that's one of the more fascinating things I've seen over the last couple of years is that the idea of pagan fiction.
Mhm.
I've seen Druid fiction, pagan fiction, witch fiction. Uh,
Yeah.
it shows the size of our community, that it has grown enough to support fiction writing versus that. You said you brought them back. Did you bring them back yourself, or did you use?
Yeah, I've never done that before. I just they were originally with Llewellyn,
Hmm.
and then Llewellyn decided that they weren't selling well enough, so they canceled the books. They,
Hmm.
went out of print. I got the rights back. Very important, if you're an author, make sure in your contract it says if the book goes out of print, you get the rights back. It's so important.
Oh,
Um,
sure, absolutely.
yes. And then I brought them back myself, and I'm actually making twice as much money as I was before. So
This is
it's fine.
this become a source that, and next year, which means sometime in January, we're going to do a writer summit online just to talk about these sort of things so people can understand it. But today
Yeah.
we're talking about Yule. We're talking about great presents for the fiction writer. Well, that was a great one. So you got to give them the gift of reading, and of course we share in the Icelandic holiday of Christmas Eve, where giving away a book the night before in the Christmas Eve is a wonderful tradition. I wish more people would
Yeah,
practice.
pagans are incredibly well read. We're actually we have more higher degrees than the
Mhm.
general population. We read books, which unlike the general population, you know,
Well,
we like books.
yeah, wasn't it a phrase that I think the Order of the Library we have is the idea behind the great lady Phaedra Ivanowitz once said, "We don't have holy books, we have holy libraries." And
Holy
I think,
libraries.
uh
Yeah, I
we
like
do.
that.
And I think that is something that we do, and I think that they're an inheritance. So books aren't just, I think they're a long-term inheritance as well. So thank you, and let's go ahead one more time, EllenEverettHopman.com. As you see this, go ahead, take a look for her books and consider them gifts that give around year round, because reading is one of those things that is fundamental. Uh, Thank you for being with us, and blessed be.